Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly MMA market update video. This is Gianni DePoce, and it is great, as always, to be with you all. This week, we are joined by special guest and MMA's very own currency expert, Ulric Aspegrén. How are you, Ulric?
Fine, thank you very much. How are you, Johnny?
Good, good. We're very glad to have you on board with us today. We have a lot to talk about. And before we do so, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before I review what's going on in the markets this week?
Very well. I'm Swedish, but I was brought up in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. After my schooling, I went to the United States and took a university degree in engineering and computer science. I then worked for a corporation for 20 years plus. And in 2010, I wanted to work for myself. So I left in 2013, 2014. I was able to join the first Merriman Market Timing Academy, and came out as one of the top graduates. And now I'm working as a full-time as a market timing analyst. And I'm with the Merriman team. I am a financial advisor in Geneva, Switzerland, and I have my own website called aspegrén-analysis.com. So it's been a great journey, and I have a lot to thank Merriman for that.
Indeed, you know, I'm so glad you mentioned that you were one of the original MMTA students, because you've been working with Ray's methodology for what, 7, 8, 9 years or so, and your currency analysis is excellent. I always reference that whenever I'm doing my own, because your cycles, you patented the cycle pyramid that many of our readers are so used to seeing, that is very helpful in seeing, what the bigger cycles are and what their sub-cycles are as well. So we're very excited to have you on board. We're going to talk about the euro and the US dollar in just a moment. But before we do, I want to review some charts and talk about what happened in the market this week. We're going to save some special time for the euro and the dollar, so I won't talk about that myself. But let's begin with the Dow Jones. The Dow is trading near the lows of the week. We are recording this week's update as the market is still open. And we had a pretty strong start to the week. But then after the Federal Reserve raised short-term interest rates 50 basis points, markets reversed sharply and closed below key support. And last week we talked about the Sun-Uranus conjunction that happened on May 5th and how that could correspond to breaks of key resistance or support. And it appears to have corresponded with a break of support this time around. So we'll have to see how we finish out the week. But as of right now, bears do seem to be in control of this market. I always like to compare what's going on in the Dow to what's going on in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ made a new low here on Friday, and we've mentioned this before. I'm not going to repeat it too many times, but we see how the tech stocks continue to underperform as Saturn continues its transit through the sign of Aquarius. And we know that Saturn has a tendency to depress prices in the sector or the sign that rules the sector that it's transiting. And then I also want to take a moment to look at crude oil. Crude oil, we do not have the closing price for Friday yet, but it is trading near the highs of the week. And this continues to be one of the strongest performing sectors in the entire market, and is really the only one, aside from the US dollar, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, that is displaying a strong uptrend. So we're coming out of that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces. And one of the aspects that we're going to talk about, and it's going to happen next week, is Jupiter ingressing into the sign of Aries. So what might that mean for commodity-related sectors, since it's been such a tailwind for markets like crude oil? And then I also want to talk about Bitcoin for just a moment, review what's going on there. This really bore the brunt of the the Sun-Uranus conjunction on May 5th. Because it looked like we were trying to find a floor in Bitcoin, but as soon as that Sun-Uranus conjunction struck, we closed at a new multi-week low and broke key support. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. And we have been giving our readers to the MMA crypto reports updates on this front, and the dangers as well as opportunities that are present in the cryptocurrency sector. So be sure to check out that report if you are interested in the cryptocurrency sector. So Ulric, I talked about what's going on in this market. Would you like to look at the US dollar or the euro first?
We can look at the euro.
The euro. Okay, so the euro, here we are. We closed down on Thursday. It's up a little bit here on Friday, but euro. Ulric, what are your thoughts on what's going on in the euro? Because it's been a pretty strong bear market in the last few months.
Yeah, the euro is in big trouble. It has broken the 4-year cycle low, which was made in March last year at 106.35, and this means that it could have a bearish rally, but eventually it's going to go lower, and the struggle is now becoming long term. We could see it's really until June, say beginning of June, we're looking for a intermediate term cycle low, and from there a 1 to 5 months rally. But after I see it continuing lower, unfortunately for the euro. And if it takes out another low, which was made in January 2017 at 103.39, it could stay bearish. I mean, for like 10 years. I mean, it's really as a struggle. Where is it going? Down.
Maybe to zero, right? Well, I guess we'll see.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's really strange. It's not behaving at all. It's done in the previous, let's say, 16-year cycles where it topped in the middle. Here, it's potentially the long-term top could already be in. And therefore, I'm not very positive at all. There is always a caveat that the long-term low could have extended, but probabilities favor that once this intermediate term cycle crest is in, we're heading lower. It has a confirmation with the chart labeling that I have. So yeah, I'm not positive. On the contrary, if you look at the dollar from January 2021, it's been a massive ride, and it's now been taken out the high that it made in January 2017, which was a 103.82 and that's very bullish. So just as the euro could now rally for some months, we could now see that the dollar could pull back as it's making its 15-month cycle crest. So it could go down for some months as the euro is rising. But once that low is in, the 15-month cycle low is in, my view is that it will get back to bullish and go to higher highs, yes.
So I just want to point out that Ulric will be providing his full analysis on the euro and the US dollar. This Sunday, we're going to have our part 2 of MMA's annual webinar series. And Ulric, as I mentioned, covers the euro and the US dollar for MMA cycles. So, you know, he's giving you the window dressing, so to speak, here today. But if you want to hear the more detailed analysis of what he's talking about, be sure to check us out this Sunday. Details of this webinar can be found at www.mmacycles.com. But Ulric, I also want to point out that next week on the same day that Jupiter ingresses into Aries, we have Mercury beginning a retrograde period. So do you think that could have any impact on the short-term direction of the dollar or currencies?
Yes, it could definitely be where it reverses and starts its intermediate term cycle descent. That correction, yeah, that could be where it's going down.
Well, that's great. Do you have any other markets or countries or upcoming geocosmic aspects on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, the short term, as you mentioned, is a Jupiter changing sign from Pisces, which has been very good for oil, for instance, mining, but now we're going into a complete different energy in just a few days, and that will stay in the sign of Aries for a year. And Aries is all about competition, combativity, I mean, war. Yeah. So my view is that all those stocks that are defensive will continue. They've already had a good run, but they will continue higher. Everything that has to do with firearms, military, Unfortunately, it also means that the war in Ukraine and Russia will probably start to heat up. At least there will be a lot of activity from each part to do that, and that's that's what it is. Actually, you will have at the end of this month Mars joining up Jupiter in Aries, and that is that. So whatever we've been pretty in a way passive with Jupiter in Pisces and Venus and Mars and that, but once we're now moving into this energy, it will become very heated and activity, as well as in your personal life as in the macro.
Indeed. That's excellent, Ulric. Thank you for sharing that. I also want to point out one more thing on this dollar chart. You know, we had Uranus ingress into the sign of Taurus back in 2018, and Taurus rules currencies as well. And this one seems to get left off the radar. But you know, we could be on the precipice of a massive breakout in the dollar, and breaks of key resistance are a characteristic of the the Sun Uranus conjunction that we saw this past week. And as you mentioned, we just took out that high from 2017 in the U.S. dollar index. So keep an eye out, as you mentioned, for a big rally in the U.S. dollar in time, short term, with Mercury going retrograde. Could see some short term wheel spinning, so to speak. So Ulric, that's all the time we had for today. I really appreciate you coming on. As I mentioned, Ulric will be a speaker this Sunday at the MMA webinar, as well as myself and, of course, Raymond Merriman. We're very excited to have that. Details at www.mmacycles.com. We also have the monthly MMA Cycles report set to be published on May 9th and 10th. So be sure to check that out as well. And of course, we encourage all of our viewers to sign up for the weekly market preview that Ray Merriman writes each and every week. That's a great complement to this video that we provide our viewers and readers on a weekly basis. So Ulric, thank you so much for coming on. Any last words before we call it a week? Well,
no, I'm just looking very much forward to share my findings with concrete time target and price objectives this coming Sunday. And great to be able to be with the Merriman team.
Indeed. We're really glad to have you as well, Ulric. Ulric will be doing the euro and the dollar. I will be covering crude oil, T-notes, and beans. Ray will be covering stock markets, precious metals, and Bitcoin. So thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope to see you on Sunday at the webinar. Have a great week ahead.
Have a great weekend. Thanks, Johnny. Bye.